They laughed at the poor food seller who gave away her meals for free. But one day, a billionaire's convoy stopped at her stall, and the truth silenced everyone. If you love stories that touch the heart and teach life lessons, hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss an amazing story again. In the small, bustling town of Umueke, where dust danced with the wind and laughter echoed from wooden stalls, lived a humble woman named Amara. She ran a small food stand by the roadside, selling steaming rice, beans, and pepper soup to travelers and workers who passed by each day. Amara wasn't rich, far from it. Her stall was made of rusted zinc sheets and old wooden planks. Some days she made enough to buy food for her children. Other days she went to bed hungry. But no matter how little she had, her heart overflowed with kindness. Every morning, just after sunrise, an elderly widow known as Mama Nneka would come walking slowly down the dusty road. Her wrapper was faded, her steps weak, and her eyes tired. She would greet softly, "Good morning, my daughter. Do you have a little rice for me today?" And every morning, Amara would smile and say, "Mama, sit down. I kept your portion aside." Even when business was slow and customers few, Amara never turned Mama Nneka away. She would dish out a plate of rice, sprinkled pepper stew, and hand it over with a gentle smile. "God will bless you, my daughter," the old woman would whisper. The other sellers would shake their heads. "Amara, you're too soft-hearted. That old woman can't pay you a kobo." But Amara would only laugh. "A person's true wealth isn't what they keep, it's what they give." Some mocked her, others pitied her, but Amara's faith remained firm. She believed that kindness was a seed, and though it took time, one day it would bear fruit. Her children sometimes complained too. "Mama, why do you keep giving her food when we don't have enough?" Amara would touch their heads and say softly, "One day you'll understand. What you give with love never leaves you empty." And so, day after day, under the heat of the sun and the noise of the market, Amara kept feeding Mama Nneka, unaware that heaven itself was watching her little act of mercy.
Weeks passed, then months. Amara's kindness became the talk of the market. Some people admired her heart, others whispered behind her back. "Look at her," they said. "She feeds beggars while her children wear torn clothes. What foolishness!" But Amara's smile never faded. "If the world mocks kindness, then let me be foolish," she would say. Mama Nneka became a daily part of her life. Sometimes they would sit together after lunch, sharing stories of the past, how the old woman once had children who had all gone to the city, promising to return, but never did. "Life can be cruel," Mama Nneka would sigh, "but your food warms more than my body, Amara. It warms my heart." Those words became Amara's strength. No matter how difficult her day was, she found peace in feeding that one old woman. Then one afternoon, something strange happened. Mama Nneka didn't come. The bench she usually sat on stayed empty. Amara waited until evening, worried, but the old woman never appeared. Days turned into weeks. The neighbors laughed again. "She is gone," one said mockingly. "You wasted your food on an ungrateful stranger." But Amara refused to speak badly of her. "Even if she never returns, I'm glad I was kind while I could." Time moved on, but the absence of Mama Nneka left a hole in Amara's heart. Still, she continued her daily work, serving truck drivers, traders, and farmers who came by for food. Then one hot afternoon, as the sun stood high in the sky, the entire town began to buzz. People ran to the roadside, shading their eyes as a convoy of black SUVs rolled into Umueke. the air filled with dust and whispers. Who are they? Politicians? Government people? The cars stopped directly in front of Amara's stall. From the back seat of the lead car stepped a tall, well-dressed man in a designer suit. His face was serious, but gentle, his eyes scanning the small market as though searching for something lost. Everyone froze. No one could imagine what a man of such status was doing in their poor little town. He walked slowly toward Amara's stand. The crowd watched in silence. "Are you Amara?" he asked quietly. "The woman who sells food here?" Amara blinked, nervous. Yes, sir, that's me." He smiled faintly, and what he said next made the entire market fall silent. "My name is Nneka, and I came here because of my mother." The people gasped. Amara's heart began to race. "My late mother," he continued, "was the widow you fed every day."
For a long moment, no one spoke. The market, usually filled with laughter and shouting, was completely silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Amara's lips trembled. "Your mother?" she whispered. The man nodded. "Yes, my mother, Mama Nneka." Tears welled in Amara's eyes. But I never knew she had a son. She said her children left for the city and forgot her." Cheek sighed deeply, his eyes dark with regret. "She was right. I did leave. I was young, chasing wealth and power, believing success meant distance from my roots. I built companies, traveled the world, and surrounded myself with everything money could buy, except peace." The crowd listened, moved and ashamed at their earlier mockery of Amara. "One day," Cheek continued, "I returned home quietly to surprise my mother, but when I got to the village, they told me she had passed away. Among her few belongings was a little diary, and in it, page after page, she wrote about you." Amara's tears fell freely now. "About me?" He nodded. "She said there was a woman in Umaweke who gave her food every day without asking for a coin. She said your kindness restored her faith in people, that it reminded her of the love she once gave to me." He paused, voice heavy with emotion. Her last words in that diary were, "If ever my son returns, tell him to find the woman who fed me when the world turned its back. She carries a heart richer than gold." The entire crowd gasped. Even the proudest traders lowered their eyes. Cheek looked at Amara with deep respect. "I searched for you for months. When I finally found this town and heard your name, I knew God had led me here." Amara couldn't speak. Her lips quivered as she held her chest. The same woman she thought she was feeding out of pity had been a test, a bridge between heaven and her destiny. Cheek's voice softened. "Mama Nneka didn't need food. She had everything in my house. She disguised herself because she wanted to see whether kindness still lived among the poor, and she found it in you." A murmur spread through the market, part awe, part shame. The same mouths that once mocked Amara now whispered blessings under their breath. And then, with a gentle smile, Cheek said, "I didn't come to repay you, Amara. I came to honor you." The next day, the convoy returned, but this time not with just cars, with engineers, builders, and decorators. The market gathered again, eyes wide with disbelief. Chike stepped out, walked straight to Amara, and said, "My mother once dreamed of opening a restaurant where everyone, rich or poor, could eat with dignity. I want to make that dream yours." Tears streamed down Amara's face as she tried to speak, but no words came. The man continued, "From today, you will no longer sell by the roadside. You will own the restaurant we're about to build, in memory of my mother's kindness and your golden heart." Gasps filled the air. The builders began measuring the ground, and within weeks, a new building rose on that same dusty road, Mama Nneka's kitchen, painted in bright colors with a sign that read, "Where kindness is served daily." The once poor food seller now ran one of the most beautiful restaurants in the region. But even with her new success, Amara didn't change. Every morning, she made sure food was prepared for the hungry and the poor, because that was who she had always been. Reporters came, newspapers wrote her story, and television cameras captured her humble smile. But when they asked how it felt to be blessed by a billionaire, she simply said, "You cannot buy kindness. What I gave was small, but God made it grow." Chike became more than a benefactor, he became family. He visited often, bringing his own children to learn from the woman who taught him what wealth truly meant. And when people asked him why he helped her, he would reply, "Because she helped my mother remember what love feels like, and she helped me remember what being human means." Soon, the town changed. Where people once mocked the poor, they began to share. Those who used to laugh at Amara started giving food to those in need. The market became a place of unity, not gossip. And whenever someone hesitated to help, they would say softly, "Remember Amara and Mama Nneka." Amara's story traveled far, not as a tale of luck, but as proof that when you give with a pure heart, heaven always takes notice. Months turned into a year, and the story of Amara and Mama Nneka became something of a legend in Umuweke. Travelers came from far and wide, not just to eat, but to feel the warmth that flowed through the doors of Mama Nneka's kitchen. Every morning, Amara would stand by the entrance, greeting her customers with the same smile she had back when her stall was just a rusty table and an old pot. She never hired anyone to serve the poor. She insisted on doing it herself. "Some blessings," she would say, "must be given by your own hands." Children from nearby schools often came to hear her story. She would tell them, "Kindness is like firewood. When you share it, the fire burns brighter." Her business flourished, but her spirit remained humble. She dressed simply, lived in the same small house, and never spoke of herself as rich. Chike visited often. Each time he came, he'd sit with Amara over a bowl of her famous pepper soup and talk about his mother. "One day," he told her, "I'll build Mama's foundation to help widows, the poor, and women like you who give even when they have little." Amara smiled. "Then her spirit will live forever." And so it did. Together, they launched the Mama Nneka Foundation, using part of the restaurant's profit to feed and educate widows and orphans. The once forgotten roadside woman had become a pillar of hope for the whole community. One evening, when the market was quiet and the golden sunset spilled across the street, a little boy came running to Amara's restaurant. He was barefoot, holding a small plastic plate. "Please, Ma," he said shyly, "can I get a little food today? I don't have money today." Amara smiled softly and bent down to his level. "Of course, my son. Sit and eat." As she handed him the plate, her eyes glistened, for in that moment she saw herself from years ago, poor, struggling, but still giving. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Mama Nneka, your lesson continues." And somewhere in the fading light, she felt a warmth in her heart, like the blessing had come full circle. Time went on, and Mama Nneka's kitchen became more than just a restaurant. It became a symbol of what love and humility could do. People traveled from neighboring towns to witness it. Some came hungry, others came broken, and all left with full hearts. Amara's children grew up to become kind, educated adults who carried their mother's spirit wherever they went. And every year, on the day Mama Nneka first walked into her stall, Amara hosted a free feast for widows and orphans. When journalists once asked her what kept her giving, she answered with the wisdom of an elder. "Because the hand that gives never runs dry. What I gave Mama Nneka was food,
but what I received was life." That line became famous across the region. Schools quoted her story, churches shared her words, and people began to live differently, a little kinder, a little more patient, and a lot more grateful. One morning, Chike came again, this time without his convoy, dressed simply in a native wrapper. He joined Amara for breakfast, and after a quiet moment, he said, "You know, my mother always said something I never understood until now." Amara looked up. "What did she say?" He smiled gently. "She said, 'The richest people are not those who have the most, but those who give the most.'" Amara nodded slowly. "Your mother was a wise woman." As they ate, the morning breeze carried the laughter of children outside. The town had changed forever, and all because one poor woman chose compassion over convenience. Years later, when Amara grew old, she would often sit outside her restaurant, watching the sunset and smiling at the people she once fed, now feeding others. And when her time finally came, the town gathered to honor her life. Her resting place bore an inscription written by Chike himself, words that captured the story that had touched the hearts of many. "Here lies Amara, the woman who fed a widow, and in doing so, fed generations with kindness." The hand that feeds the hungry never loses its strength. A kind heart may go unnoticed by men, but it is never forgotten by heaven. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe so more people can feel the power of our beautiful stories.